Hi there. Sequencing a photographic project for publication can be a daunting process. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a highly personal process, but I thought I would make a video that addresses some of the questions that may be considered when contemplating a publication. The process of shifting single images into a sequence is a creative process and skill all of its own. You're creating something entirely new, and it might be useful to draw on ideas of flow and tempo by exploring disciplines like cinema and music. Sequencing an exhibition will have overlaps with a book-making process, but the considerations are not necessarily exactly the same. I'll extract the information into broad categories so you can engage with the process systematically. Yes, well, that's a good point. Why would one bother to present the world with yet another photo book? Apart from the obvious, like you have a publisher or maybe some commercial incentive, there are also valuable insights to be learned that could alter the way that you go about building an essay. At some point in your process, you might feel that you're beginning to repeat yourself and that maybe it's time to stop shooting. Or maybe you feel that you've lost your way. The certainty that you felt at the beginning of the project has become a bit muddied. These are perfect moments to pause and produce a zine or cheap self-published once-off book using, say, a service like Blurb. Because the cost is low, you won't be putting yourself under huge pressure. It doesn't have to be a statement to the world that this book represents your completed essay. Rather, one can view the publication process as an opportunity to engage with your photographs in a manner that is almost impossible to achieve while flipping through pictures on your screen. The sequencing process in particular highlights whether your photographs maintain a consistency, as well as pointing out any gaps within the essay. You can also invite someone you trust to look at the publication. The physical volume allows the viewer to engage with a more contained representation of your essay. The character of your project greatly impacts the choices that need to be made. A project dominated by portraits will demand a very different response to, say, one made up of landscapes. A mix of portraits, details, landscapes, and interiors will add a level of complexity to your linking determinants. A project may have confining parameters in terms of subject matter. An example would be Sally Mann's at 12. You know that all the photographs that she's showing you relate to the transition from childhood to womanhood. But her sequencing takes us on a journey through this complex growth period. She shows us girls clinging onto their childhood attachments, experimenting with independence, dealing with insecurities, discovering their sexuality, and coming to terms with loss associated with change. On the other hand, your essay may be more free-ranging. The pictures are more diverse, but still relate to an umbrella theme. Chris Killip's In Flagrante is an example of this. During the 1970s and 80s, he documented the devastating impact of deindustrialization on working-class communities in northern England. Because of the variety of subjects he photographed, he had to sequence the pictures in a way that allowed the viewer to engage with the ongoing narrative, rather than feeling they were looking at a random collection of diverse scenes. Killip was highly skilled and was able to maintain a thread through all of the pictures that communicated a particular mood and his intent. Design is a significant factor in determining the character of your publication. This subject is broad and would be better handled in a separate video, so I'm going to avoid going into too much detail. Whatever the nature of your essay, My advice is to research what's been done by other photographers and choose a look and feel that suits you. The bottom line is that you have to transform your sequence essay into a PDF for printing. Without knowledge of InDesign, the simplest solution may be to find an online printing service that offers ready-made templates into which you can just insert your pictures. Layout is essentially part of the design discussion. How you choose to display the images on the pages will strongly affect the sequencing methodology. Your choices are again a spectrum. The classical approach is white page on the left and a single picture on the right. Pairings link two pictures within a double page spread. And then there are various fusion approaches. You could allow pictures to span the spine or group multiple combinations of images within a double-page spread. This latter approach can be funky and engaging in magazines, but it's really difficult to hold this level of complexity over the length of a book. This is the nitty-gritty, the gist, the essence of sequencing. How do you put pictures in an order that will spark a light bulb in the viewer's mind? Generally, you want the viewer to move effortlessly from one image to another without being jarred, but also allowing them to connect with the themes within your essay. When we produce visual repetitions in a photo book, we are tapping into 300,000 years of human evolution. We developed pattern recognition as a survival mechanism, so we have to capitalize on this to fully engage our viewers. A publication should be a complex puzzle for the viewer to decipher, not necessarily solving, but gaining an understanding of the communication that you're offering them. Think of it as an invitation from you to them to participate in a journey. The more hyperlinked the book, the deeper the possible engagement. Gestalt theory suggests that you are creating a whole which is greater than the sum of its parts. Perhaps it's better to consider the creation of a publication as a method of elevating your pictures from two-dimensional objects into a form that provides a three-dimensional experience. In addition to the substance that you've captured within each picture, you are adding depth through the meaning that emerges from how the pictures relate to each other. Before I get too woo-woo about this, a practical starting point is to produce cheap prints of all of the images and lay them out on a table, the floor, or on the wall. So much of the sequencing process happens unconsciously, so you have to give yourself the space for your subconscious to explore connections. There are a lot of software options to move pictures around digitally, but nothing beats the physical presence of the prints.
Yeah, I have this sort of system where I cut up my contact sheets, and I'll show you some. I'll show you some now. I've worked. I make these miniature shelves. I cut up my contact sheets and I put these miniature shelves on the wall, and just stare at them and edit through them and look at them. And I like to sit with them for, with Zizix, I think they sat on these little shelves and I shuffled them around for over a year, thinking about the sequence and the edit. And it's a very helpful part of my process to have this sort of physical element to it.
From now on in the video, my little category markers will have subdivisions. Time is the most basic determinant. If there's some defining chronological order to your pictures, then it's probably best to go with that order. Form or internal geometry involves pattern, shape, line, or texture. A theory related to why we are so alert to line is that our visual evolution was closely tied to our need to identify the presence of snakes. Their bodies often create a line within an otherwise randomly textured background. so don't underestimate their impact. If you are pairing pictures on a page and there are strong lines present, then it'll become jarring if, say, horizontal structure lines or horizons are too conflicting. Then there's color. You can maintain a palette to induce continuity, or you can use contrasting colors to shift to a new theme. If you do this kind of jump cut, you will need another linking device to maintain a connection. When pairing pictures in which color is significant, the level of saturation will become an important factor. Unless you're purposely trying to create disjuncture, pictures with similar tone, contrast, or atmosphere generally work better together. This set of examples is by no means the full list of linking devices. Again, look how other photographers have used linking devices effectively. Your aim is to maintain an engagement with the viewer by creating visual relationships between the pictures. So you can't be too repetitive or obvious. It's always a balancing act. Sometimes subtle links can be more shocking than those that on the surface seem dramatic. You can experiment and push the linking logic, but if you stray too far, the viewer may lose touch with the thread that you've laid. To use a cinematic analogy, if you're watching characters driving in a car and then the film jumps to them eating in a diner, it won't make sense. You need an intermediate scene which will show them parking outside and then finding a table inside the diner. If you discover through your sequencing process that there are some images that don't seem to fit in with the others, you should question whether they have a place in the book. If you feel that they are absolutely necessary, then you might need to include other images in order to allow them to fit into the sequence. You are not necessarily looking to create a best-of album. Just because a picture is strong, or you worked hard to capture it, or your girlfriend likes it, it doesn't mean that it deserves a place in the publication. If it doesn't strengthen the sequence, then it may be time to let it go. Holding a physical book in your hands allows you to judge whether you've maintained a cohesive thread throughout. All the pictures should be members of the same family. You can question and ask others to question whether you have eloquently communicated the story that you set out to tell. The process of sequencing one's work helps to refine one's overall practice, because the evidence is staring back at you in RGB or CMYK. Good luck with your project, and I'll see you next time.